Good evening, everyone. Welcome to FlashPoint. I'm Gene Bailey. Glad you're here. Yes, I'm out on the road, and we decided to do FlashPoint live, or at least my part's remote. I'm here in New Orleans. Let me bring in Rick Green, who looks like he's in a broom closet somewhere. Hey, Rick, how are you?
I think tonight, Gene, we're having a competition for who has the best hostage video.
That's right. That's right. All right. So, Rick, I know you're in the middle of what's going on there. Right off the bat, let's talk about this press conference that Joe Biden did. Of course, we know NATO has been going on, but the reality here is this press conference, I believe, had nothing to do with NATO. It was all about Joe Biden coming out and attempting to show strength. Tell me your thoughts there, Rick, as what you've seen and heard.
Well, and Gene, you used the right word, attempting to show strength, right? They know the situation. They know that their own people in their own party are calling on him to step aside. And so they're doing everything they can to prove that he's still all there. But yet every time they put him out front, whether it was the debate, whether it was the interview with Stephanopoulos, or even a presser like this, or even at NATO, he's already embarrassed himself several times. Every single time, he's confirming what the whole country has known, what we've known at FlashPoint for years, and what the rest of the country has known for the last few months, that he's simply not all there, and he is not capable of doing the job. And Gene, I think most people, now that they're aware, they're watching closer. You know, they're analyzing the way he speaks. They're thinking about their parents or grandparents that might have gone through dementia or gone through this stage of life. And they're realizing, wow, he is in that stage of life. And then they're thinking, OK, well, how bad could it be? You know, so he gives bad speeches or whatever. But then they start thinking about, what if we get, a nuclear attack? What if there's a serious attack on the United States? How quickly could this guy get up to speed in the Situation Room? And what kind of chaos would ensue in the Situation Room if nobody knows who's in charge, because he won't step aside and Kamala and the cabinet won't invoke the 25th. So now everybody's trying to get orders and decisions from this guy that can't even give a speech right now. It's bad for the country, Gene, and they need to do the right thing and either invoke the 25th, or somebody needs to convince, not Joe, he doesn't even know what's going on, convince Jill to finally stop having a shadow presidency.
It's true. Let me bring in Greg Stevens from Victory News. Greg, I know you were sitting there watching it back there in the studio as well. One of the things that I wanted to get you to speak to is we've heard all weekend long, or the last couple of days. I'm trying to get to the weekend. What we've heard is all about a big boy presser.
It is. It's the big boy presser.
I have no idea what that is. If that was supposed to be a compliment, I'm not sure they got what they wanted.
And what's interesting is that's what the White House came up with. That's their word for calling it a big boy presser. It's because he hasn't had a full unscripted press conference in many years. A typical NATO press conference, it started late. So we're still working on some of the assets and clips on that, but it started late as usual. And the president came out, Joe Biden came out, he talked about in campaign mode. He talked about his predecessor. He talked about three key issues that he wanted to address. One, that the economy is doing good, and they've created 2,000 more jobs. He talked about the other guy, his predecessor, wants to put basically a tax on all Americans because he's going to institute tariffs, which would even hurt NATO, and it would cost each American about $2,000 for groceries and all if his predecessor is reelected. And then the second one was very interesting to me, Gene. His second big accomplishment is the border, the southern border, is working. It's working. And that the numbers are down. And because the former president wouldn't allow something to be passed, and so he did executive action. And I thought it was really interesting that he hit economy, and then the border is working, and then he announced that they have a new movement with what's happening in Israel. Since Israel was attacked by Hamas and from Gaza, he said there is a ceasefire agreement in place that all parties have agreed on, and it went before the UN Security Council. So he's taking credit for those three things, and those are the three things he led with before he began taking questions.
All right, let me go back to you, Rick. Same question. Big boy press conference. What does that mean?
Well, it sounds like, I mean, just the content of his speech tells you that he's not capable of running the country because he's so delusional that he actually thinks the economy is doing good, that the border is secure and doing well, and that we're actually helping Israel instead of hurting them through his policies and the things that he's doing behind the scenes. I mean, that alone should tell everybody the guy has lost reality. And I don't know what's worse, guys. Is it worse that we have a White House that's willing to put him out there like this and spread these just complete fantasy land statements, or for people to actually believe it? At some point, we the people are responsible. So if people are watching this and buying it, there's some level of culpability on the part of the American people to not do their homework and not watch FlashPoint. If they're watching FlashPoint, they're certainly not going to believe this nonsense. But at some point, the American people have to say enough is enough. I did see this afternoon. I think it was Babylon Bee. It might have been somebody else, but I did see a big boy presser, and it had Jill holding up Biden as a baby with the head. And I thought, okay, maybe that's why he's like, get your big boy pants on and go out there and give your speech. This is terrible, guys. It is so sad that we're even joking about this because they're making us, right? They are putting the nation in this position. They don't love their country more than self. They love themselves so much more than they love this country.
Well, and there's been a couple of big gaffes today. Let's talk about the NATO press conference. He called. He meant to introduce Zelensky, and he called him Putin. And then just a moment ago, talked about his presidency with his vice. He put Vice President Trump in, and he's fully capable. These are massive mistakes. Now, I've been known to mess up a word or two, and I'm just like everybody else. But this is when you're reading something off the prompter. It shouldn't be this way. I believe that we're doing something we are in a place that's so unusual right now in America. I've been pushing people that I know, like, you have any idea who Trump's going to pick for vice president? No, I have not. Everybody goes through the usual suspects, and we come back to, I really don't know. What's Joe Biden going to do? Is he going to step down, or what about the money? Let's speak to that, Rick. Let's take that a little bit about whether he steps down or not. If Kamala was not the choice, all of that $200 million goes away. Is that correct? They can't use that money for that campaign.
It can go to the DNC. It's just that then they don't have the campaign doesn't have the control over it, and it's limited on some of the things that it can be spent on. It can't go to another candidate directly, and they want to be able to control those funds. And remember, who controls the funds? It's all those consultants, right? It's all those people that have these big contracts for all these big TV buys and everything else. They're the ones that really want to keep Biden or Harris on the ticket. And I guess one thing to really think through here, maybe he is planning to name Donald Trump as his vice president to really just confuse everyone, so the whole country will be confused. I don't know. That one I hope is not a Freudian slip, because if they think that's their solution, we're really in trouble. But I've been thinking about this war gaming this thing out. If he actually was to resign in the next week or so, which that's kind of the rumor around town in D.C. and what people are saying, that he's not only going to not run, and get out of the race, but possibly actually resign the presidency, which he should. I mean, that's just the right thing for the country, considering where he is, or at least invoke the 25th. But if he actually resigns, now if they invoke the 25th, she's acting president, but she's still vice president. You don't need a new vice president. But if he resigns, Gene, then that means she's president, and you have to replace and have a vice president. You don't have to, but if they wanted to have a vice president during this last 6 months, then she can appoint somebody, but they got to be approved by the Senate. And if she's not the vice president to break a tie, we got a 50-50 tie in the Senate. Man, we could have a really interesting way that this would play out. We've all been guessing. I'm kind of at this point where I'm thinking maybe they've maneuvered enough to where they're going to give her shot. Like, she's going to get a chance either by invoking the 25th or him resigning to be president for the next 6 months. And maybe, how these things, they might cut a deal where she only gets the 6 months, but she's not the nominee, but she gets to be the first female president, blah, blah, blah. I don't know, man. Stranger things have happened. It could be a really weird 6 months, but I don't see any scenario where they overcome the lies to the American people that are damaging the Democrat brand right now. They're hurting their own brand to the point of being unrecoverable, at least for this election.
And let's remember that if they did what you said there, Rick, who's to say at the end, by the time it got to the election, she would say, I am running. We
Right.
could have the same problem
Right.
all over again.
They could make their deal,
all right.
and then she reneges at the convention, and now you have a Chicago
That's right.
1960s crazy convention in Chicago.
That's right. Crazy. All right. I talked about this earlier. Let me show you this clip from earlier today in case you haven't seen it. This is Joe Biden introducing Zelensky as Putin.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. President Putin. He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky. I'm so focused on beating Putin, we got to worry about it. Anyway.
Wow.
I'm so focused on it.
Wow.
If I wish we could have gotten Lou Dobbs tonight, because he would have said, "What is he jacked up on?" It's my favorite Lou Dobbs quote.
But Gene, you said it earlier. We all have gaffes, right? I mean, I've said things on stage and not even realized I said it until I came off stage. Right. And then you're like, "Oh man, I really messed up those words, or I got the wrong name, or whatever." So if it wasn't for the pattern of this stuff, and then of course the other clip with him calling Vice President Harris Vice President Trump. You can't just dismiss this stuff as, oh, I'm just too focused on this, or I just messed up. I mean, the pattern is just painfully obvious. It's literally, we're becoming a joke. The country's becoming a laughing stock because he's the head of the country right now.
That's true. And Greg, let me go back to Greg Stevens. Greg, this is NATO. The real concern here is what I've been hearing all day, is that America looks weak right now, and everybody's wondering what's going to happen with Joe. Is he going to make it? Is he okay? What about the next 6 months? What does that mean? Are we going to be able to have a country that's stable?
Those were the first questions that were asked when he started taking questions. It's funny that when he started, this is the big boy press conference, he made the comment, he goes, well, they're giving me a list on who I'm supposed to talk to here. And so he did Reuters first and then went down the others. He mentioned that not a single person, a head of state of Europe, has said that he's not capable of doing the job. He mentioned that Macron is saying you have to win. You can't let Trump win. He talked about Trump didn't even know what NATO was, and that he was going to isolationist and pull us away from Ukraine. But it's funny that Biden just yesterday took credit for the NATO countries paying more of their fair share. Well, everybody knows that was Donald Trump. Jeannie did something kind of strange. He said, when asked if he was able to get the job done, he was asked about 8 p.m. and he said that was he misspoke there, that he needs to just redo his schedule a little bit. And here's what he said. He did the whisper thing again. You remember when he would do the whisper? He did the whisper and he says, I mean it, guys, I mean it. He says, I'm getting the job done. And there's no indication, looking at the economy and looking at this conference, that I'm not getting the job done. And if I wasn't getting the job done, then there's basis to me stepping down. But he basically said that NATO existing will only happen if he's reelected. It was an interesting comment.
It is interesting. Well, let's talk about what's happened. Rick, late this afternoon, these Democrats have already asked Biden to step down. Brad Schneider from Illinois, Ed Case, Hawaii, Greg Stanton, Arizona, Hillary Shelton, Michigan, Marie Perez, D.C. At some point, this is going to have an effect. It must. I mean, there's a collision coming. At some point, This is going to collide.
Yeah, and Gene, all politicians typically think of themselves first, right, and how they can protect their career, or if they're a little bit more well-meaning, how they can protect their district and the people that they actually represent. And all of these politicians, all they're thinking about right now is he's going to take us down with him. That's what they're thinking. They're not even that as worried about losing the White House, as now they're moving to the point of he's going to take us all down. We're going to lose in a bloodbath, and it's going to be a not only in Congress but at the state level, local level. They're going to lose all the way down. So it's starting to grow. The cries are starting to grow. I don't see any way he weathers this thing by the time they get to the convention. And there used to be I think of George Washington. I know this sounds silly, but there used to be a selfless, what's best for the country. I'm not going to stick around longer than I'm useful. And George Washington resigned twice when he could have been king. Did it right after the war. Did it after his 2 terms as president. And yet we have this desire for power. And it all comes back to what we talk about here on FlashPoint all the time. It's the lack of morality. It's the lack of believing in God. It's the lack of doing things that are beyond ourselves. When there's no God, we become very selfish. And so this whole pushing God out of the public square and out of our society has made us just the law of the tiger and the shark. We're just grabbing power, holding on as long as we can. And so we don't have that selfless statesman-like mindset. And in the past, Democrat or Republican, you recognize when it was time to step aside and do what was best for the country. And we used to use the word honor, and those things mattered. I mean, these guys, this is just honestly spitting on the graves of all those who came before us and sacrificed for the country because they just won't let go, man. They are holding on as long as they possibly can. And like I said, the brand is going to suffer for a while. And we said this before, but Republicans need to press the gas. Conservatives need to press the gas.
Right.
People of faith, this is an opportunity for us to take back some ground. I think God's doing this to them. He's putting a delusion on them. They do not see how bad it is. They can't see it. And so they just keep doing these silly things. And it's our chance right now to take back a lot of ground in America and start restoring our Constitution, restoring faith in America. We've got the Supreme Court decisions that allow us to put God back into the public square, 10 Commandments back up, all of those things. Man, we need to be pushing right now and pressing our advantage.
Yeah, Greg, let me ask you a question because Rick brings this up. I mean, as Christians, as believers, we're seeing the result, not just of elections having consequences, but we're seeing the result of pushing God out, whether it was pushing God out of schools, pushing God out of government, pushing God out of the Democrat Party, all those things that have happened. We're actually seeing the harvest of all that right now, aren't we?
We are, but here's the encouraging part. Now, and I want to go on the record, Victory News, FlashPoint, this ministry, we're not making light or making fun of Joe Biden. By no means would we do that, but it is serious business right now in the world. It's a spiritual battle. I'm seeing God being pushed back in. You look at what's happened in Louisiana with the 10 Commandments. You look at Oklahoma teaching in schools, having a Bible in every classroom. You look at Arkansas. You look at Tennessee having a measure where they called for the entire month of July to be a month of fasting and prayer. And that's in the state of Tennessee because there's a sense out there that we've got to get back to our moral compass. To the point that Rick was making a while ago about our former people putting the country first, the president said something a moment ago concerning NATO. And he said it was transferred from Truman to Reagan to himself. And I thought, wait a second, from Truman to Reagan to himself. And so I looked at it as you're trying to elevate yourself to Truman and Reagan's status and not even mentioning George W. Bush or first Bush or Obama or the Clintons or anyone else. And so it's that mentality that he was describing that so many people have in Washington right now. That's the swamp that the former president talks about. Now, to the point of, am I getting the job done? Let me give you a couple of things that we've just learned, because I believe things are being, I don't believe it, I know it. Things are being revealed. We're seeing the truth, and the press is finally reporting on it. Since October of 2023, there has not been a full cabinet meeting with the President of the United States. Let me say that again. Since October of 2023, there has not been a full cabinet meeting with Joe Biden and his full cabinet. The Federal Reserve Chairman just revealed in Congress under oath, Jerome Powell, he testified this week, he's not met with Biden for over 2 years. The head of the Federal Reserve, with this economy, with this inflation, the president hasn't even met with Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair. There's something wrong in Washington, and to Rick's point, the body of Christ, we have to do something about it.
We do. Rick, this is why elections are so important. I mean, this is now more than ever, we can't, like you said, take our foot off the gas. We need to do everything that's legally affordable to us, including ballot harvesting, which is accurate now, which is legal, and we can do that. But what is your concern going forward, aside from whatever candidate ends up being the Democrat candidate going forward? You have to wonder first, is President Trump looking at this, waiting? I've wondered, is he making his decision on his VP dependent on if Joe's running or not? I mean, that's
Yeah.
something he has to take into account. I mean, it's a good strategy to actually sit back and wait and see what they're going to do first. Of course, the convention's next week, but I mean, we've got a lot. There's so many moving parts to this that we've yet to see happen.
Yeah, it could definitely have impact on it, man. I'll just say this: generationally, something really needs happening here. I feel like it's almost like the children of Israel in that previous generation had to die off. Guys, I'm in Delaware right now. I'm at the Delaware State Capitol, where Joe Biden built his career here in Delaware, and I've got about 50 young people here, 16 to 25, the next generation in Delaware that is learning biblical worldview and how to win, how to press the gas, how to be biblical citizens, and the hope is off the charts. We're in a land of darkness here, man. The legislature here has done crazy, crazy stuff, but we are shining the light. We're bringing biblical truth, and these young people are eating it up. I'm just telling you guys, there's a shift. If Hank was here, there's a shift that is happening right now, and we're feeling it right here in Delaware. It's pretty amazing.
FlashPoint coming to Fort Worth on July 28th. Listen, we've had to change. So many people have registered. We're having to move from the Hilton Fort Worth. So as we continue to populate all of the websites, you go to 2024flashpoint.live. We will now be at the ballroom in the convention center. So it's just a feat from where we were going to be, but we can accommodate more people. So you want to make sure you're there. So there's the graphic. Of course, there'll be Pastor Hank Kuhneman, Dutch Sheets, Lou Engle, Jenny Donnelly, and who knows who will show up. I want to see you there. 2024 flashpoint.live and be a part of what God's doing in Fort Worth. This is going to be an amazing meeting. Now, this is unusual because it's a Sunday night, starts at 6 p.m. You want to get there early, and we're going to see a lot happen.